Hello everyone! So, in this video, I'm going to be trying out rock tumbling, and this is also my first time rock tumbling, so this should be interesting. Here I have two rock tumblers. So several years ago, I bought this one, which I believe is from Harbor Freight originally. Got this at a yard sale for $10. And just last year, I picked up this one from a yard sale for $10. And I have tried to use this one before for certain things, like cleaning off rock or rough garnet specimens, and the issue I've had with this one is the belt has snapped on me twice, which maybe it just needs to be greased up a little bit and cleaned up, and maybe it'll work better. But this one I haven't yet to use, and I did clean this one. I did grease up the little rollers here, check the belt, blew out the motor. It should be ready to go. As you can see here, there's an obvious size difference with the Harbor Freight being a little smaller, and whatever brand this is, or wherever it came from, with these containers being larger. So I should be able to fit more rock in here, which then means more grit product and polisher and things along that line. So I was going to get into tumbling sooner, but the grit I bought online, I got scammed. They showed a full bag full of the stuff, and when I got it, it was only a sliver on the bottom, so that kind of moved me away from tumbling for a while because I didn't purchase anything. But what I have here is the Polyplastics rock tumbling kit, which I believe I got for about $30 on Amazon. So the Polyplastics, they give you all the grit and polish you need, and they also give you this plastic, they look like little plastic pellets or something. Maybe they're not plastic, they're probably whatever you call them, but they're little pellets, and I believe it's for fill. So if you have, it's supposed to take up space in your tumbler to help it be more efficient in the polishing process. And it says right here, actually, they're ceramic media or ceramic pellets. Alright, so the rocks that I'm interested in polishing today, or tumbling, is Garnet Amphibolite, or Garnet Gneiss. So these ones, a while back, I did try to already start a polish with them. And interesting enough, I didn't put any grit in these. I just ran them with water and put them in with a whole bunch of other rocks like these and ran it for a couple days, and they started to smooth out on their own without the grit. So I think you can run this without grit. It'll just probably take longer. The grit, I imagine, is supposed to speed things up. So I believe the Garnet Amphibolite would make really pretty stones. I mean, here's a good little sample of this one all smoothed out, and you can see all the little garnets in this. So these will make, I believe, perfectly cool, round little stones. And especially the ones with the quartz running through it, you can see the garnet here and there throughout the rock. There's a little bit of oxidation here and there, but I imagine that'll be cleaned up in the tumbling process. So if I had a rock saw, I could make, with bigger chunks, I could make some nice slabs, and those would be really pretty as well. They'd make really nice coffee coasters with the garnet, and especially the little quartz veins running through as well. So the black minerals are mostly, I believe, biotite. There's a lot of biotite in this, and probably some other amphibole minerals. And of course the little red ones are the garnets, which look really cool. So here's a handful I haven't done anything with besides break them up with a hammer. They're just the rough version of the rock, and they're dry. They're not wet. Maybe I should wet them real quick. There we go. Now they're wet. You can see they're basically the same thing. These just have rougher edges compared to the more polished version that I did here. And you can see they're starting to dry out a little bit here. With some nice polish, they'll look pretty cool, I believe. Man, these kind of get like a vacuum seal sometimes, it seems. Probably hasn't been opened in years. There we go. This one, that's interesting. It has the some flat sides in it, as with the Harbor Freight, it's completely round on the inside. So with these tumblers, I believe you're supposed to run them about 2/3 full, which means I'm going to need more rock, and I believe I have a chunk of amphibolite around here somewhere, so I should be able to make more, break off more chunks to throw in the tumbler. And I still have this one to fill too. Alright, so I combined both the ones I already did and the rough ones, and I believe that should be about 2/3, so there should be no need for those ceramic pellets that go in here. So this one should be good to go. Now, for the grit, it says that you should put about, I believe, 2 tablespoons per pound of rock that you have, I also want to run some in the other container, which you don't have to. You could run them empty. But I want to see what happens with these things. So I've collected these. These are those weird garnet things that are covered in biotite and some other minerals. You can see there's some of the garnet right here. But I was finding these with the metal detector, so wondering if these can be cleaned up at all. I've tried it before, but again, the belt broke, so I didn't get very far. I also have this stuff, which is technically, I guess, kind of the same thing as this, almost. It's slightly different. This is more weathered, and it's more brittle. There's a lot more biotite, or at least the biotite's a lot larger on this stuff here. You can kind of see all those planes of it compared to this, which is more, it's more compact, smaller grain, I would describe it as while this is a little coarser. Also, it's structured a little bit different. And these little nodules, these are little garnets areas that are completely covered in the biotite. And you can see the garnets are about the size of my thumbnail there. Now compare it to the little garnets in this. So, a little different. More compact, a little larger it seems. And these pretty much came from the exact same spot. They did come from the exact same spot. This was just a little couple more feet up in the rock than this was. So as an experiment, since this stuff is so soft, I'm not going to put any of the grit in here. I'm just going to run it with water and see what happens after the first couple of days. And maybe this really hard rock here will help break all this up. And we'll just see what happens with this one. I'll put grit into the other rocks. Alright, so let's begin with this stuff here. And boy, yeah, they definitely gave me a lot more than the first company I bought from. So, a whole pound of it. So, it says to do about 2 tablespoons per pound of rock. 1 nice heart-shaped tablespoon. 2, 3, and 4. And you can see how fast it goes. If anyone knows where I can buy this stuff in bulk and save a little bit more, let me know, because depending on how this turns out, I might start tumbling more often since I have 2 tumbling machines. But we'll see how I do on my first attempt. And we fill it up with water until it's just covering the tops of the rocks. And now we should be good to go with this experiment. And we'll seal it on up. Kind of curious to see how this turns out. And as far as the rock, not too worried about if it gets ruined or any weird things happen to it, because it's Garnet Amphibolite. So I self-collected it, and I know where to get a whole lot more. So, oh, what am I doing? I'm getting ahead of myself. Talking too much. There we go. What happens when you don't pay attention? Alright, and looks like we're good to go. Alright, let's put this down into the tumbler machine. There we go, it's all nice snug fit. And let's plug it in, hopefully it spins nice. And there we go. Hopefully I didn't overload the machine with too much weight, but it looks like it's doing okay. So, according to the instructions, you let this tumble for 7 days in a row, which means this time next week I should be opening it up and showing you what's inside. If you're wanting to buy some of this stuff for yourself, you can go to my Amazon storefront and buy some from there. Buying from my storefront helps me, and that way you help support the channel and you get yourself some good rock tumbling material. So, thank you if you do. Alright, let's check on these ones. As you know, didn't put any grit, just straight old rock and water. Interesting, so this is how this stuff is turning out. Really smooth, oddly shaped. Got the garnets here. What's interesting is, those are where you would think the garnets are, and they are there. But they must have like this really hard resistant mineral around them, because the garnet's really not showing through. You can see, well, you're probably not going to notice it's pretty minute, but the garnet is popping through in these areas. But that's interesting rock. Alright, I don't know if you're going to see this, but that is garnet. Let me get the rest, try to get the mud off of it, the rest of it. See all that? That's all garnet for the most part. Surrounded by the resistant rock. And a little bit of quartz right there too. So you can see the red of the garnet maybe in this one. There we go, you can see it there. That is a lot of garnet. There's a good light angle. It's just a whole bunch of, I don't know what you describe it as. It's not really nice fine crystals of garnet. It's just a whole bunch of garnet fused together. But we'll keep on tumbling this stuff too and see what happens. Alright, so it's been 5 days. I think these are going to be good enough. I've already took a look at them, but I'll show you guys what I got here after 5 days of tumbling. So for the most part, they're pretty well rounded. I think they are ready to go to the next step. Some of them, unfortunately, have cracks like this one, so I think I'm going to throw the ones that have cracks in them out, and maybe if I do another tumble, I can break them apart and retumble them, because if I keep these in the tumble with the finer grit and eventually the polish, if there's any pieces of the coarse grit jammed within these cracks, or if they break open and crack out while in the polish, the grits that come off this could scratch the final product and ruin a lot of rocks. So it's just best to unfortunately throw these out, as pretty as that one is. Here's how these turned out. Gotta clean them up a little bit more. So I didn't put any grit in this, remember, and the mud that this produced is just thick, but it's smooth as oil. And if I remember right, they used to use, or they still do, biotite and muscovite as a lubricant, along with graphite. So, like, this mud is really smooth mud. Alright, so I got my step 2 medium grit. Now for the ceramic pellets. I think I'm just going to put them all in there. Take up as much room as possible. We'll see how this turns out. This is an experiment, first time, but since there's a lot less room in here, I believe this will help. I don't think this will hinder the process. If anything, it should make it better, especially since it's a bigger barrel. There we are, ready to go. And this one is ready to tumble for the next 7 days. Now, as far as the ceramic pellets, it does say to fill up until the container is about 3/4 full, which is about what I did, so it should be fine. And we'll see how it turns out a week from now. Now, these rocks here, these were mainly an experiment, so I don't care about these ones too much. However, this one, you can see the garnet's cleaning up nicely. See how the garnet's popping through? I think it'd be really cool if I could get that to happen with a lot of these. So what I did is I saved the grit, most of it, from the other bucket. And since this is an experiment, I'm going to see what happens if I run these through the old grit mixture and see if I can get these to clean up a little bit more, maybe smooth them out. We'll just see what happens. We'll see what this looks like in 1 week, next Sunday. The size of these has reduced a lot. If you remember how large these things were, they are quite small now. But some of the garnets that were in the rock are starting to pop out now. Like this one here, that's all garnet. It's a pretty dense feeling. And that one big rock that had the garnet in it is gone, and I imagine this is all that's left of it, so it is reduced quite a bit. We have all these smaller rocks as well. Next batch. Alright, it is time to move on to step 3, doing pre-polish. Let's take a look at the rocks first, to show you how they're coming along. And they are coming along great. They're already getting nice and smooth, and I believe these are going to look gorgeous once they're all done and finished. You can see all those garnets in there now. If you remember this one, lots of of the biotite and stuff has come off, so it's revealing a lot more of that quartz. But we should be ready to go for step 3. When you put your rocks back in here for step 3, it's important to make sure all the grit from the previous tumbling is off, so that way it doesn't scratch up your rocks in the polishing process. Same with the ceramic. I hope I got it cleaned off good enough. Make sure you use pre-used ceramic pellets, so that way they don't have rough edges. So this is the pre-polish, and it says to use 1 tablespoon per pound of rock. Well, I know I at least have 1 pound here, but I'm not sure if it's quite 2 pounds. And with how soft these rocks are, I don't think it'll quite need it. So what I'm going to do is a tablespoon. You can see it's really powdery. It's like a flour. And maybe just a half of a tablespoon for the next. There we go. That should be good enough. Alright, so it's been another week, and I did fall a day behind, so it's now Monday, but I did stop the tumbler on Sunday. So this is the experimental batch, and as you can see, it has reduced in size quite a bit. Most of the rock is now gone, because it's mainly made up of that biotite, and it pretty much just pulverized into nothing. This one is the only really rock intact. There's a garnet right here. But all that's left now are these tiny pebbles of garnet that have been rounded in the tumbler. Alright, so here are the tumbled rocks out of the pre-polish. Decided not to show me dumping it because after seeing it twice, I'm sure you get the idea. But now they're nice and clean, and a lot of the pre-polish didn't want to come off, so I had to give a couple of them a good scrub to make sure it doesn't go in on the final product when we do the polish. But they seem to be turning out pretty well. They're not entirely smooth yet, and when they dry out, they still are a little cloudy, so hopefully the polish will get them looking like this all the time. Alright, it's time to put in our polish, the step 4 final polish, which is aluminum oxide, very fine powder, and according to the instructions, 1.5 tablespoons per pound of rock. Not a very even heart scoop, but that'll do it. Alright, so we'll see this in 1 week, and I hope it turns out. Alright, so the tumbling process is done now. I actually ran the rocks for an additional 3 to 4 days just to get the polish a little more improved, because I did check on it. And something I learned, apparently, reading some forums online about tumbling, is that the grit that they give you for the polish, or the polish grit for the final polish, is about 1200 grit size. And apparently if you want a professional polish, you should try to get the grit, or the polish, I'd say, I keep calling it grit, the polish that's in the 12,000 range, and you'll get better results, apparently. Another thing is, something I should have known and kind of forgot, is these rocks are made of biotite, and biotite's a soft mineral, and garnet is a harder mineral. On the most hardness scale, it's harder, and biotite is softer, so they're going to erode and break away and wear differently. So the garnet actually protrudes a little bit more than the biotite, and when these are in the polishing stage, biotite flakes really easily, so biotite's not really going to polish, it's going to just keep breaking away. So this, when this dries, it doesn't have a nice shiny polished surface, because biotite is not easily going to do that. So here you can see it dry, and here's one that's still damp. You can see this one has a little bit more shine to it. The garnets stand out a lot more noticeably on this one compared to this one, but I'm going to see what these look like treated with a lacquer or some kind of oil. So we'll see what these look like with something added to them to give them a nice shine. So in here I have the garnets I tumbled out of the nice, so they're nice rounded garnets. But some of them have some really nice red color when you put a light to them, so let me grab a few out, and I'll show you that right now. Alright, so just real quick, these are the garnet types that you can see light going through. They're kind of more flat. They have a little bit of a different texture to the other ones that are more rounded out, like these garnets here from the tumbling process. So these ones here, you can't really get light shining through. They're pretty just opaque garnets compared to these ones. These ones on their own are pretty opaque as well until you put them behind the light. Then they have a nice red color to show off. So see if I can show that now. There we go, it's focusing. This is the light from my phone. You can see that nice red color showing through the garnet right here. Pretty sweet. Let's move on to another one. Again, nice red color shining through. It's a lot more vivid in person. Nice color there. Alright, so finally I have my Amphibolite polished rocks, which I sprayed with a lacquer to give it this nice shiny finish to it, which you can see here. It came out decent. It'd be easier just to have the polish to, polish off these rocks, but with Amphibolite being the way it is, I don't think that's necessarily going to be possible with all that biotite flaking off. And you can see it actually starts to crack out a little bit during the polishing too, which you can see here. But with a good lacquer, or maybe even a clear coat might do a good job as well. Something like a diamond clear even, which is going to be a little harder. Wonder how that would look compared to the lacquer spray. But with good lacquer, makes it look really nice. And it doesn't take a lot, so I just took these and I put them on newspaper, and you just give them a quick couple of sprays right on top, and that lacquer is going to coat almost the entire rock right on the top. You let it dry, you flip it over, all of them, and you give it a quick another spray and make sure it's completely covered. It won't take much. And it actually did a pretty good job, and it was easier than I thought it was going to be. So right here I have two unlacquered rocks. These are just from the polishing, tumbling process alone, and this is the one with the lacquer spray. So here's a good visual difference. This one has, of course, a darker and more of a glisten to it, and this one, just from the polishing alone, came out actually pretty decent. But if you want that extra shine, I recommend either a lacquer or maybe a clear coat. Alright, so this pretty much wraps up the video on the tumbling process. This was my first time. It was mainly an experiment to see if this would actually work. Due to the softness of these amphibolite rocks because of the biotite, I don't think putting it through all the grit processes is necessary, especially if you're going to be spraying it with a lacquer. So to save yourself some of your grit product and your money, you could probably just tumble these by themselves in some water, or possibly maybe with the first grit, and then if you really want to, you could tumble it over time and maybe get a finer polish on it. I'm actually not sure how it would turn out just with the water, but I feel like if you're going to spray it with a lacquer, just to get those smooth edges, you could probably just tumble it by itself with other products, and you'll probably get that smoothness, rounded pebble look, and then you could spray it with lacquer and you might possibly get the same results as this. So this was fun doing this. Definitely enjoy the look of the rock. I'll probably coat the rest eventually as well in lacquer, and maybe I'll save a few and try a nice clear coat. And then with the other rock that I experimented with, found out it's a good way to get the garnets out individually. Nice way to separate it from the rock, and then you can get some nice little garnet stones that light up quite nicely with a light in the background. I do enjoy the look of these stones. If I had myself a nice rock saw and a big old chunk of this rock, which I do, this stuff would look really nice cut in slabs and polished up, maybe as some coffee coasters. But I don't have a rock saw at the moment, but cutting this stuff up and polishing it as big old slabs would look gorgeous. But this will conclude the video. I hope you found it informative, and hopefully we'll have some more videos coming out. Been quite busy, but keep a lookout. I hope to post at least something every month. And once again, I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you all in the next one. You all take care. Have a